For over a year now, the beloved Pokémon Stadium games have been available on the Nintendo Switch through its online expansion pack. However, despite the excitement of seeing these classics reintroduced, fans remain disappointed by a glaring omission. There is still no official support for the transfer pack feature. This lack of connectivity undermines one of the most appealing aspects of the original games, the ability to transfer Pokémon from the handheld versions and see them battle in 3D for the first time. Back when the first Pokémon Stadium was released, the novelty of watching 8-bit sprites from the Game Boy games, Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal, come to life in full 3D was a big deal. However, with every mainline Pokémon game since Pokémon X and Y featuring 3D models, that novelty has largely worn off. For modern audiences, the excitement of seeing their Pokémon in 3D is no longer enough to carry the experience, and the absence of transfer pack support feels like a missed opportunity. The loss of transfer pack functionality. Many fans of the original games still treasure the classic 251 Pokémon, and for them, the inability to transfer their teams to Pokémon Stadium on the Switch feels like an insult. The transfer pack, included with the original Pokémon Stadium on the Nintendo 64, was a crucial part of the gameplay, allowing players to use their own Pokémon and experience personalized battles. Without that functionality, the games lose a significant part of their charm. So why include these titles in the Switch's Nintendo 64 library at all if they can't be fully enjoyed? The frustrating disclaimer that Pokémon cannot be transferred to this game appears in small print on the game's advertisement, raising the question, why hasn't this been fixed? For a game so heavily reliant on this feature, the lack of an updated solution feels disappointing. The problem with rental Pokémon. For those who never owned the handheld games or don't have compatible Pokémon, both Pokémon Stadium games offer a selection of rental Pokémon. While this provides an option for players who lack a complete team, the rentals are notoriously subpar. They are usually underleveled, have suboptimal movesets, and are much weaker than Pokémon transferred from the handheld games. In particular, evolved rental Pokémon often have worse moves than their pre-evolved forms, which makes them frustrating to use. Furthermore, their stats are intentionally kept low, with minimal diversity values, DVs, and no stat experience. This setup encouraged players to purchase the handheld games so they could transfer their own, more powerful Pokémon into Pokémon Stadium. This design worked well for the original release, but on the Switch, where players are limited to rental Pokémon and can't access their own teams, the challenge becomes unnecessarily frustrating. It's not just about strategy, it's about battling with a significant handicap in a game that's already difficult. Online battles, a mixed bag. One of the more positive aspects of the Switch version of Pokémon Stadium is that it allows for online multiplayer. Thanks to the Switch's online service, players can now battle their friends remotely, something that was impossible on the original Nintendo 64. Players can set up a lobby and play with friends using the Play Online option, which also allows up to 4 players to compete in multiplayer mode. However, even this feature has its drawbacks. First, it's almost impossible to hide a Pokémon's moveset from your opponent, as every move is selected through a series of button presses that can be seen on screen. Secondly, without the ability to transfer Pokémon, players are once again stuck with the subpar rental Pokémon, which levels the playing field but removes much of the competitive depth. Potential solutions: can this be fixed? Fortunately, there are a few potential fixes for this issue, although they are far from perfect. A popular workaround is to create a competitive format called the rental metagame, where players compete exclusively using the rental Pokémon available in Pokémon Stadium. While this levels the playing field, it's still a far cry from the rich customization and personalization that defined the original experience. For players willing to delve into more technical solutions, it's possible to import Pokémon teams from the Game Boy games into Pokémon Stadium on the Switch using custom firmware and third-party programs. However, this requires technical expertise and carries the risk of voiding a Switch's warranty or getting the console banned from online play, so it's not a solution for the average player. From an official standpoint, one plausible fix would be for Nintendo and Game Freak to allow the original Game Boy Pokémon games to be playable on the Switch via the system's Game Boy emulator. This would enable trades and transfers between the games, just like in the original Pokémon Stadium. Alternatively, developers could create a free downloadable content pack that allows players to generate clones of Pokémon compatible with the Pokémon Stadium games. Another potential solution could involve implementing a progression system, where players earn rewards like stat boosts, moves, or items by completing challenges in Pokémon Stadium. This would give players a sense of achievement and offer a way to improve their teams even without the ability to transfer Pokémon. Why Pokémon Stadium on Switch still matters. Despite the frustrations, there is still a lot of nostalgia surrounding Pokémon Stadium for longtime fans. The original games gave players their first glimpse of Pokémon battles in 3D, and while the novelty of that has faded, the appeal of revisiting those early Pokémon generations remains strong. For fans of the first two Pokémon generations, the hope is that developers will eventually find a way to make Pokémon Stadium a more enjoyable experience on the Switch, whether through enabling Pokémon transfers, improving the quality of rental Pokémon, or introducing new ways to engage with the games. Until then, players can only make the best of the current offering, hoping that Nintendo and Game Freak will eventually address the issue and make Pokémon Stadium on Switch the full experience that it once was.